Welcome to our literature class. I am teacher Kevin, believing that you're in for learning. Join me in exploring the fundamentals of 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world. Literature teaches us that words are powerful, and so let us jumpstart this day with these inspiring words. Just like the writers of literary pieces, make each day your masterpiece. Likewise, let us start our class making sure that you've already done the BTS, body check, technology check, and space check. Because if you're able to do this, this means that you're ready for the class. In our class, we have our own version of hashtag OOTD. This means objectives of the day. And our objectives are based on this most essential learning competency. That is, to write a close analysis and critical interpretation of literary texts. Here are the OOTD. For our first activity, we are going to watch the audio-visual presentation of the spoken word poem entitled Who Knew? But before watching, based on the title, what do you think is the poem all about? This is Who Knew by Octus Productions.
Who knew that the unseen could freeze cities, states, nations, and all? Who knew solitude and 6 feet apart was no longer a choice, but a way to save lives? The world decided to close down and redecorate its walls. Who knew that we'd be waking up reminding ourselves that we are no longer dreaming? That covering our expressions, staying apart, and grieving is the new normal in the midst of disbelieving. Signs surrounding our homes, screaming, "We're all in this together." We're pleading. The losses, the wins, the everlasting quiet leaves a space to ruminate, regroup, or perhaps to riot. It is our choice whether to rejoice in others' victories. Do we pull open our windows to say thank you to humility? In the empty streets of concrete jungles, can we make our support and gratitude echo in the emptiness as loneliness crumbles? When a force greater than all continents combined is placing a hold on our busy, fast-paced lives, let us find the delicate moments to latch onto and to fight together towards the ultimate breakthrough.
It's now time to converse about the spoken word poem. To do this, let us answer these questions. Number 1. What is the context of the poem? Number 2. What did you feel while watching the audio-visual presentation of the poem? Number 3. What message was impressed on you? And number 4. Do you think that this poem is considered as 21st century literature? Well, you'll be able to verify your answer in question number 4 as we go along the lesson. Let us now explore the key concepts of 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world. Let us begin with literature. What is literature? The origin of the word literature is a Latin word, literatura, which means writing formed with blank. What is this word that we're looking for? It starts with letter L. You are right, it's letters. Literature is basically defined as writings in prose and poetry. Furthermore, it is said to be a body of written works produced in a particular language, blank, or age. What is this word that we're looking for? It starts with letter C. Correct. It's country. Now let us ponder on other definitions of literature. What do these definitions point out? Certainly, that literature is an art form. What makes literature literary? Let us look into the so-called literariness criteria. As we have learned from the etymology of literature, a literary piece is made up of words and texts. It is marked with creative use of language, which entails both the literal and figurative language. It belongs to literary genre or genres. A little later, we are exploring the different genres of literature. It can be read or performed artistically. No wonder literary pieces are delivered in speech choir and other oral presentations. Lastly, it is open to interpretations. Thus, we appreciate the beauty of ambiguity. Literature may be classified in different ways. Literature may be prose or poetry. By merely looking at the text, you can recognize that it is prose when it is made up of sentences and paragraphs. You know that it is poetry when it is composed of lines and stanzas. In terms of language, prose sounds similar to ordinary speech or writing. On the other hand, poetry sounds special or more artistic than normal speech. There are figurative language, idiomatic expressions, metaphors, and the like. Lastly, prose may or may not be creative. And poetry, on the other hand, has a main artistic purpose to share something personal. Let us read these texts. Can you recognize what do they have in common? Right, they are both about the pandemic. Although they have the same topic, they differ in classification. One is prose while the other is poetry. Which is prose? Which is poetry? Fantastic! The blue-colored text is prose, while the red-colored text is poetry. If we classify literature according to form and structure, we have prose and poetry. If we classify literature based on content, we have fiction and nonfiction. Can you differentiate the two? You got it right. Fiction is greatly inspired by the writer's imagination. On the other hand, the framework of nonfiction are accounts on real people and true events. On one hand, we have the biography of Antonio Luna. On the other hand, we have the General Luna movie. The question is, which is fiction? Which is nonfiction? That's incredible. The biography is nonfiction, while the film is fiction. Although General Luna depicts biographical and historical events, a great part of its narrative is imagined or fictitious. Have you ever wondered why do we read literature? What for is literature? This brings us to the functions of literature. According to Horace, an ancient Roman poet, literature is dulce et utile. Dulce translates to sweet, while utile means useful. Literature is likened to something that is sweet because it entertains, while it is deemed as something that is useful because it informs and teaches the humanity. The next key concept of 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world is 21st century. What is the time frame of 21st century? Technically, it started in the year 2001 and it will end in the year 2100. And so, all the literary pieces created and published from 2001 until the present time are considered 21st century literature. The intertwinement of literature, history, and time is undeniable. As in the words of Henry David Thoreau, books are the carriers of civilization. Without books, history is silent. Let us use these images to describe the evolution of literature through time. Apparently, literature started in spoken or oral tradition, then the print or written. And now, in the 21st century, it continuously thrives in digital or multimedia platforms. At this point, let us play Anagram. To play this game, you only need to rearrange the letters of the words to form the correct term. Do you want a clue? Well, the clue is these words pertain to the classic genres of literature. Number 1. Definitely, it's drama. Number 2. Excellent, it's essay. Number 3. Nonetheless, novel. Number 4. Precisely, it's poetry. And number 5. Superb, it's short story. Once again, the classic genres of literature are drama, essay, novel, poetry, and short story. For our next activity, you are going to determine what classic literary genre is depicted in the literary piece that I am flashing. Let us start with El Filibusterismo. Correct. This is novel. Where's the Patis? Absolutely. This is essay. How My Brother Leon Brought Home a Wife. Fantastic. This is short story. How about a haiku? Perfect. This is poetry. And Rack of Ages. Great. This is drama. Do you know what makes 21st century literature more fascinating? It is the fact that it encompasses the emerging genres of literature. Here are some of them. Creative nonfiction, hyperpoetry, mobile phone text-to-lab, chick lit, speculative fiction, flash fiction, blog, and graphic novel. Moving on to the next key concepts of 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world. We are going to read, explore, enjoy, and learn from varied literary pieces that do not just come from the Philippines, but also from the different parts of the world. Specifically, we will survey literary pieces that represent the different regions of the Philippines. And as for world literature, we will survey literary pieces across the globe. And that completes our understanding of 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world. If everything is clear, kindly write Crystal in the chat box. But if you still have any questions or points for clarification, feel free to click the raise hand button. Based on our discussion and activities, in your own words, how would you define literature? How about 21st century literature? As we conclude our exploration on the fundamentals of 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world, I challenge you to complete this statement. I have discovered that 21st century literature is... For your independent study and asynchronous task, you need to accomplish a written work. And this is a close analysis on literariness. This necessitates watching again the spoken word poem that we watched at the beginning of the class. This is Who Knew by Octus Productions. And then you will write a close analysis about it by answering the following questions. Number 1. Based on Mayer's literariness criteria, what makes Who Knew literary? And number 2, what makes Who Knew a form of 21st century literature? Answer each question in 3 to 5 sentences only. Short but substantial. This has been Teacher Kevin, believing that you're in for learning. Always put in heart and mind that reading literature is lit. God bless everyone.